It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Well, hello there. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to The Phil Ferguson Show. I am so delighted that you are here. And of course, my apologies for the delay in getting another show out. I'm not quite sure how it happened, but January has been very, very busy, which is good. The market's up smartly. Last year was 18.4%. We talked about that in the last show, on top of 30% from the year before that. So a lot of people have made a lot of money. It would also be a very reasonable time for you to contemplate your allocations. So if you rebalance only once a year, take a look. You don't have to do anything crazy, but you know, if something has grown more than the other things, maybe rebalance if you can, especially if you're in an IRA. And I went over a lot of that in the last show. So just be aware of that to provide some kind of once a year maintenance, at least on your accounts. The other fun thing that I had mentioned either last show or two shows earlier was about home loan rates, and I was refinancing. And I may have even said that I had done it because I figured it was going to be easy. No, it's not easy. There's some new problems with home loans if you have a business. So you have to, I guess, prove that you're still in business. I'm guessing COVID has caused enough failures in small businesses, which is tragic to think about, that since I own a small business, I have to prove to them that I have this small business. And the ways that they presented as possibilities of how I can prove it are in violation of rules that I have to follow for privacy and security of my clients' data. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but we're trying to find some workarounds. But there is the distinct possibility, after spending a couple of weeks more than I expected to spend on this, that I may not actually be able to refinance my house, which, you know, it's a bummer because I don't get all of the savings that I talked about a couple episodes back. But this could be downright devastating for some people. And I'm also wondering, if this rule stays in place, what do I do if I move? Or if I want to buy a condo somewhere where there's some fucking sun? I probably won't be able to get a loan, and you know, maybe I have the means to just buy it, but not everybody is going to. So that's a big deal. So I will keep you posted how that works out, or if I learn about new rules. Another thing that I want to throw in just as a brief comment, it had come up a couple times, and it's weird how things do this, that I haven't thought about for years or brought it up, and all of a sudden 2 or 3 or 4 times the subject comes up. And this subject is called Escheatment. Yes, Escheatment. And I'm going to take a moment here to spell it because it may be a new word for you. E-S-C-H-E-A-T-M-E-N-T. Escheatment. So it's E-S-C, heatment. Heatment. Escheatment. And this is a process where companies, possibly a bank or a credit union or a brokerage firm or anybody, an employer, a former employer, anyone that might owe you money or sent your last paycheck, but you already moved from your house or apartment and you didn't tell your former employer, anybody that has lost track of you and doesn't know where to send the money, they will engage in a process called escheatment. And that money is sent to the state where that business is located and set aside, and the state holds it for you in your name. Now, they might actually be able to find you with a trivial Google search, but they get hundreds and thousands of these, and they've got other things to do. So your information and your money just sits there in perpetuity. Now, I don't know if states have some rule that after 50 years or something that they can just pocket the money, or if they spend it in the meantime and only have to come up with it if you claim it. But depending on your circumstances, it might be a fun thing to do. And one of the things that brought this up is someone made a comment on a Facebook post that I had that they have stock in their name, but they lost the paper certificates, and so it's gone to them. And I think it was related to how Bitcoins disappear. And I said, well, have you checked your state escheatment office? And they're like, what the fuck is that? So I thought I'd bring it up. So the state that you live in, and I'm pretty darn sure every state has an escheatment. You can Google it. Like I Googled escheatment Illinois, and it comes up and it shows you how you can sign up and how you can check and all these different things. And of course, every state will have a different process. I would like to think that they're all online now, but they may not be. But the tricky thing is that the money held for you, if there's any money anywhere held for you, may not be in the state in which you live. It may be in a state where you previously lived. It may be in a state where you previously worked. It may be in a different state where that company was organized. So if you worked for a company that was registered in North Carolina, but you live in Colorado, the money could be in either state. So something fun to do while you're locked at home is to check a few states for yourself, for your spouse, if you have one, and for your parents, if they're alive. Awesome. You might be able to help them find some money that they need. If they've passed away, then you can start the process of claiming that money. For most people, there's nothing there. Or the other conversation I had with somebody is that they found $20 from an old job that created one more paycheck for an hour or two of work, and they never knew it, and they had moved right after they left the job. And that employer didn't want to spend a whole lot of time and effort or money to figure out where you moved to. And so they just send it to Escheatment. So it was just kind of a fun thing. There are companies that do this for a living to go find it for you. You can hire them, but they usually want a pretty big cut of what they find. And they might even have a minimum fee. So sometimes people will get contacted via email, and it looks like total spam, and it might be. But there are legitimate companies, and they might send you an email that says, we have been able to document that there is money waiting for you between the amount of $1,000 and $10,000, which might mean that it's $1,004. And all you have to do is sign a contract and agree to pay them $500 plus 20% of what they find. Well, okay, if they find you $1,000, you've got to pay $500 plus 20% or $200. You pay $700 and they give you $300. If that's what you agreed to and you didn't want to do the work, okay, you pocketed $300, found money, you didn't have it in the first place, you did no work to find it. Maybe you're okay with that. Maybe you want to go find it yourself. But it's just a fun thing that maybe you could check out. And I would love to hear stories of someone that said, this is kind of cool, I've never heard of this. And they went and checked in a couple of states for themselves and some family members. If anyone finds any money, I would love to hear about it. I think that'd be a cool show topic about people finding money. The other thing I want to discuss really quickly, and I don't know, maybe I haven't talked about it on a previous show, is this weird phenomenon of saving for years and years and years. And you get to a point where, like, if you make $100,000 and you save 10%, and of course we all know 10% is the suck-ass minimum. Let's say you save 20%. That's $20,000. That's cool. Your $20,000, if it goes up 10%, you made $2,000. And you keep saving your 20%, and you keep doing that year after year, and it grows, and it grows, and it grows, and it grows. And at some point after you've been doing this 10, maybe 20, maybe 25 years, maybe 30 years, depending on how much you save and how much you make now compared to how much you made back then, you get to this weird point where all of a sudden your portfolio seems to be growing at a much faster rate. And the difference is that when you had 20,000 and it went up 10%, you made 2,000. That's still not that much compared, at least, to your income. But somehow over 25 years, you got to $1 million and the market went up 15% and you made $150,000 by being smart, by investing, by having money put aside. And the first time you get a year where you make more from your investments, or also if you lose more than you make in a year of labor, it is mind altering. It is the most bizarre thing. And I have a lot of clients over the years that eventually get to that point and experience that, not because I did anything magical, but because we had a little bit of being in the right place at the right time, keeping taxes low, keeping expenses low, and saving money year after year after year. It also is more frequent in the last couple of years because 2020, the S&P 500 was 18.4, and your broadly diversified portfolio might have made 14 or 15 because you're not tied only to the S&P 500. And the previous year, the market was up 30%, 31%. And so I've had people contact me that are like, oh my God, I made X amount this year. And it's neat. It's cool, but it can also be very disturbing, especially when, like in March of 2020, I did get a few people call and say, wow, I just lost in a couple of weeks more than I make for an entire year. And it can be frustrating, terrifying maybe, but that's how investments work in the stock market. You can have really big gains in a short period of time and really big losses in a short period of time. That's one of the reasons I tell people the stock market is not something that you try. It is something that you do. It's a lifelong process. It's a lifelong way of doing things. But for all of those people who have finally gotten to that point of what I like to call critical mass, or they've created what sometimes I call the everlasting nest egg, a nod to one of my favorite movies, Willy Wonka, the everlasting gobstopper. Instead, we have the everlasting nest egg, where your retirement portfolio is now sufficiently large enough to spin off enough money for you to live in perpetuity. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your philosophical position on the issue, you are not going to live forever, but your portfolio could if managed correctly. And so that is the place that I want to get to. I might actually be there, which yay, Phil. But I want you to get there. I want you to get to a place where you've saved enough, long enough, smart enough, because it's not about making the most money the fastest, because that usually brings in a lot of risks. It's about making really good returns, really efficiently, low taxes, low expenses, where possible without crazy volatility, and getting to a point where you have the everlasting nest egg. So anyway, that was something I've been thinking about and talking to people about, so I figured I'd share it with you. Fun stuff today. I should have covered this earlier. My apologies. But fun stuff today. I'm going to have a quick segment on tax loss harvesting, which kind of sort of ties to this, but not really. And then a wonderful interview with my good friend Samantha McGuire, who works at American Atheists. And we're going to just chat because we've known each other for years. And that some of those parts might bore the tears out of you. Some people love that stuff. But we're also going to talk about important things about the American Atheist Conference for 2021. And it's been formally announced in public. It will not be in person, but they're working on all kinds of clever ideas of how we can share experiences, share time together. So I am looking forward to helping in what small way I can by giving my input. But you can do so also by going to the webpage that her and I talk about during the interview. So check that out. So we'll have tax loss harvesting and Samantha McGuire from American Atheists coming up. And I want to touch on next show, or next two shows. I have two topics that I'm working on. One is an expected show for this time of year. I will readdress potential gains one could make on $1 million portfolio over many years. I, of course, have to find some time to update this, but I think this will be either 14 or 15 years. The first time I did it was just 10 years. And I was looking backwards in time, which kind of sort of makes it back-tested data, so don't put too much value in it. But since then, just kind of rolled it forward year after year to see the difference in a few different investment styles, from something phenomenally simple to something more complicated. And that might help you understand my thought process and my philosophies, so some people will find that beneficial. Also, hopefully, in the next couple shows, a topic that I don't think I've ever addressed, bed bugs. I have found an expert from the University of Illinois Entomology Department, and I hope it goes as well as I think it will. We're going to talk about bed bugs, what they are, how they work, and probably how to kill them. And so hopefully you will find that a fascinating story that you can't relate to because you've never dealt with bed bugs. So I'm hoping that's you. I have dealt with bed bugs, not in my house, thank you, but for, how do I say this? For somebody that I care about, for somebody that needed some assistance, and I have a position of being able to help them. And I learned an awful lot, and I didn't want it just to be me. So I found an actual expert, so we'll talk about bed bugs. But that's more than enough for the beginning. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk more about tax loss harvesting.
Behold the atheist's nightmare. Now, if you study a well-made banana, you'll find on the far side there are 3 ridges. On the close side, 2 ridges. If you get your hand ready to grip a banana, you'll find on the far side there are 3 grooves, on the close side 2 grooves. The banana and the hand are perfectly made one for the other. You'll find the maker of the banana, Almighty God, has made it with a non-slip surface. It has outward indicators of inward contents: green, too early; yellow, just right; black, too late. Now, if you go to the top of the banana, you'll find, as with the soda can makers, they placed a tab at the top. So God has placed a tab at the top. When you pull the tab, the contents don't squirt in your face. You'll find the wrapper, which is biodegradable, has perforations. Notice how gracefully it sits over the human hand. Notice it has a point at the top for ease of entry. It's just the right shape for the human mouth. It's chewy, easy to digest, and it's even curved toward the face to make the whole process so much easier.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
This segment is on tax loss harvesting. Received an email from a listener of the show, so thank you very much for this idea. It has to do with selling things that have lost you money to offset things that have made you money. And the reason you might want to do that is you can dramatically reduce your taxes. So make it ultimately simple here. You own 2 stocks, and one stock went up $10,000, and you might want to sell it. But if you do, you're going to have a capital gain because you're going to have it. And of course, you owned it for more than a year. So let's say you owned it more than a year, you're up $10,000. If you sell all of that stock and you make that $10,000 gain into a realized gain, which means you take an action to actually make it taxable, usually by selling something, you might now have to pay capital gains tax on that gain of $10,000. Let's assume that you're in the tax bracket that is 15% for long-term gains. Your tax then would be $1,500. If somewhere else in your portfolio is a stock that you or your advisor or broker thought was a good idea, but it turned out to be a big piece of shit, and you lost $10,000 in that stock, you could sell the one that made $10,000 and you can sell the one that lost 10,000, and now your total long-term gain, assuming both stocks were owned more than a year, your total long-term gain is 0. And so you have now used some clever techniques and or strategies to effectively have no tax bill due at all. So that's one of the things that you can do. Another thing, and I don't know if it really fits in this criteria, but something that I do from time to time, if it is just right for a client, is that we may intentionally sell investments to create a tax bill. Now, that is going to sound odd to a lot of listeners. I understand that. So let me walk through that a little bit. And this is usually not for everybody. And your current situation can differ, and how much you can do can differ. But it's something to think about if you happen to have a lot of investments and you've had them for some years, and also depending on what you plan to do in the short and long-term future. So if you have a $1 million portfolio and you only invested $400,000 20 years ago, of course you've paid, we're assuming this isn't a taxable account, by the way. Each year when you got dividends, you paid taxes on those. So your $400,000 plus, let's just say $100,000 reinvested. Now your unrealized gains from all the things that you have not sold might be $500,000. If you don't need any of that money right now, you can let it keep going and worry about it later. However, if your income falls during a specific year, or if you just want to realize some of those gains, what you could do is sell, and I accidentally made this math easy because half of the value is gains. You could sell some of your investment, let's say $100,000, and since it doubled, $50,000 of that is long-term taxable gains. So you'll pay the long-term capital gains tax rate. For some people, married filing jointly, I think it's under something like $75,000, $80,000. You could actually end up paying 0%. 0% is the calculated tax rate for long-term gains if you meet the criteria, if you don't make too much money. So if you have a year maybe where you normally work here and there in different jobs, and some years you make a lot of money and some years you don't, if you get a year where you don't make much, let's say you made $20,000, you could sell $100,000 worth of investments at their current price, have a realized gain of $50,000. That $50,000 plus your $20,000 as earned income or income from other sources. If all of that still doesn't get up to the next tier, your capital gains tax rate would be 0. So you could sell that $100,000 and then buy something else. And you might ask, why even do that even when the tax rate is 0? The reason you might want to do that in a very low tax situation for yourself is that $100,000 that you sold, when you now buy something new, you're buying that new thing for $100,000. So your gains in the future will be measured against the starting price of what you purchased the new thing at $100,000. So you've basically taken $50,000 of money, I guess, income, and made it non-taxable. So that's kind of a neat trick. Now, most people don't have that weird situation, but if you do, if you find that both of you are out of job for all of 2021 for whatever reason, and you're living off savings and selling some things, you might be able to sell a good chunk of some of your investments, create a taxable event by selling something that you've owned long-term, and your capital gains tax rate could be 0. Now, above 0, the next tier is 15%. And there's a lot of room to wiggle here, and almost nobody goes above 15%, but it happens. The tier for 15% goes everywhere from that 80,000, I'm going to call it, previously mentioned for the 0% tax rate, up to something like $472,000, give or take. So if you are worried, as I am, that at some point in the future, long-term capital gains tax rates might be higher than 15% for your tax bracket, You could sell things now and create a tax bill for yourself intentionally. And you might be able to sell a lot of your portfolio. So let's say you make $150. So you could have $300,000 of long-term gains and still only pay 15% on that because you haven't gone above the $470,000 of income into the 20% tier. So most people generally don't pay the 20% long-term tier unless you have a lot of money, which great, then you should definitely call me. But for most people, it's either zero or probably most listeners, it's going to be 15%. So in this scenario where maybe you make 150 between the two of you, you could sell and create 300,000 of long-term gains. And using the previous example where $500,000 of investments over time became $1 million, you could possibly sell $600,000 of your assets, create $300,000 in realized tax gains, and that would all be taxed at 15%, and you would pay probably a $45,000 tax bill, 15% applied to the gains of 300,000. So you sell 600,000, you create 300,000 of long-term gains, taxed at 15% is 45,000. Now the one part that freaks people out, and reasonably so, you sold 600,000, but after tax consequences, you're only left with 545,000. Well, bummer, that is true. And of course, you can set aside the 45,000, 355. Yeah, 555,000. You can set aside the $45,000 that you're going to own a tax bill and pay that when you do your taxes. But now you have $555,000 that you can invest again, and at some future point, you only pay tax on the gains from that point because you've already paid all the other gains at 15%. If you are really close to retirement, you might want to wait because you might make less money in a couple of years, so this would not be right for you. You might have a really big portfolio with the intention of leaving the vast majority of it for your spouse, for your kids, for grandkids, nieces, and nephews, and they can enjoy what's called the step-up basis for investments held inside of a taxable account. So there's no reason for you to realize taxes if that is one of your main goals. One of the ways I use this on a regular basis is when someone comes to me and they own a bunch of stocks. And usually it seems like an incoherent strategy. Somebody is using a list somewhere and buying 40 or 50 stocks for you, and sometimes they sell a few, and sometimes they buy a few, and who knows why. Maybe it's because they get a commission when they buy and sell. Maybe they don't, and they think this is a way to wealth, and it can be, but often index funds are significantly better than stock picking, which is why I recommend that. But if their job is to get you to trade stocks, you're going to trade stocks. So often it can be that when someone hires me and they're moving over from an account where they had a broker, we can look at all of their stocks. We can look at individual lots. So you might have bought some stock on January 1st of 2018 and July 1st of 2019, as an example. Those are two different purchase amounts, two different lots. And we can go through the account in detail and look at all of the things that you own and figure out what should come out first so that we can buy index funds. If this is all inside of an IRA, a Roth IRA, 401k, whatever, you just make the move. There's no tax consequences for doing activity within that account. You only pay taxes when the money comes out. And with a Roth IRA, you don't pay any tax even then, so you can make these adjustments. But in a taxable account, you should think about what the tax consequences are. And again, when this person comes, and again, I'll pretend it's $1 million portfolio of a whole bunch of different stocks, we might be able to very easily pick all of the losers and then look at the winners and then pick the winners that have won the least. And often that might be lots that you have bought more recently. If you bought a lot of a stock, an amount of a stock 20 years ago, the gain on that stock is likely to be pretty high, but not always. Sometimes stocks go up and then go back down. So you might be able to sell 4 or 5 or $600,000 of that $1 million portfolio and create net no long-term tax consequences. That's pretty cool. Now, the reason you can do that is because a lot of your stuff lost you money. That's not cool. But you know what? If you believe in the new future, if you like my scheme, my program of using index funds and balancing within those, this is a way you can get there and avoid a lot of taxes. So in this case, you could sell $600,000 or 60% of your portfolio and end up with a net zero tax bill, but you've moved 60% of your money with very minimal problems. It can now be invested in index funds. And so these are some of the things that I can do to help clients. Oh, by the way, all of this stuff, always check with your tax professional, because I could have something wrong. And I'm not paying the tax bill if it goes wrong. You are. So do your job and check with your tax professional. But back to our case of a $1 million portfolio, $600,000 of the stocks you were able to sell and net them out against each other, and you owe no taxes. Now, maybe another $200,000 you can sell and end up with a gain of $100,000, and you pay $15,000 in taxes, and you think, hey, that's okay. And now you've got $800,000 of your $1 million portfolio changed and moved and put in much more efficient investments in index funds. Efficient because they're more efficient, and efficient also in relationship to tax bills. The remaining amount we can work on in following years so that we don't put your tax bill into the 20% bracket. 20% long-term capital gains is the top tax tier technically for long-term gains, but there are other things that can happen, like alternative minimum tax, or I can't remember what it's called, but there's another, I think it's 3.8%. I think that might be for Medicare, that can get tacked onto your tax bill if you make a whole lot of money in a given year. That is why it's so important to understand this as a general concept, but then make sure you check the details with your tax professional for the specifics of your situation. And you may have to hire them, which would be money well spent, to make sure that you know what's coming up. Now, again, why would you even do that? Well, one, you might be able to have a much more diversified portfolio, reducing the volatility of your accounts. You hopefully will have a better performing portfolio in the long run, and you can end up making more and saving more and performing better than the tax bill that you created for yourself. So there's all kinds of reasons like that. The other one, of course, is that what will long-term capital gains tax rates be in the future? In the past, they were not 0, 15, and 20. They were 28, 35, and much higher. And you go back far enough, I think long-term capital gains tax rates were the same as income rates, which you could pay more than 50, 60, 70% on the gains. So if you can lock in some of your gains and pay the tax now and only pay 15% on the gains, you're protecting yourself from those specific gains being taxed at a higher rate in the future. Now, if long-term capital gains tax rates go down, at some point in the future, you would look back at what you did as stupid because you shouldn't have done it. However, you have to kind of weigh, what do you think is more probable? If you think you're going to make dramatically less money in the future and you can sell things and get down into that 0% long-term capital gains tax rate, you probably don't want to do much of this right now. But if your income in retirement is going to be just as good or higher than it is now, if you want to diversify and sell some of the things that you own, again, paying the tax now might save you from a higher tax bill in the future. The only way at present to avoid the long-term capital gains tax rates is to die. So if that is in your near future, I don't want to be too morbid, no reason to create a tax bill that you don't have to pay, because your assets in these taxable accounts can just go to whoever you want it to go to. And like I said earlier, they get the step-up basis. So it depends on a lot of things. It just depends on if that's the right kind of thing for you. So things to think about, things to look for and control, and help you decide when and what you should sell. And if your current advisor doesn't help you with any of that stuff, and of course, if you've got more than $1 million, you may contact me, Phil at PolarisFinancialPlanning.com, and maybe we can look at your portfolio. Keep in mind, in the email, the only information I want, of course, is your name and your phone number. I can call you. We can talk. If we decide we want to do more stuff, have another conversation, only then can you send me any documents. I do not want completely unsolicited Excel spreadsheets or statements from your broker until we've at least talked. So that's some information on tax loss harvesting and maybe tax loss tax creation, because it might benefit you in the long run. The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Your investment should be based on your situation, and you should consult with your financial advisor before taking any action. The show may contain ads. These ads are placed into the show by the hosting company after I finish recording and editing. I have little control over the content of the ads, and you should not assume that I support their products or claims. If you choose to support the show via the new Patreon page, that support does not create an advisor-client relationship.
My name is Annie Drian, and I'm founder of Cosmos Studios and an honored to have been the longtime collaborator of Carl Sagan. And I'd like to say that I think it's just the opposite of what you're saying from my perspective, humbly. One is that I think that science tolerates the unknown in a way that religion doesn't. My argument is not with people who search for God. My argument is with people who feel that our understanding of God is completed. And those are the people who make so much of our existence on this planet such a hell, because they really think that they have the right to kill other people, to hurt them, because of what they understand God's will to be. That's a very destructive thing. So science is, the whole methodology of science is saying that we are not permitted these absolute truths that religion pretends to have, that we do not know the answer to these questions, and not only that, but the little that we think we do know, if you can prove us wrong, we'll give you our highest reward. And that's part of the methodology. That's part of the whole functioning of the system itself. So yes, in answer to what Joan was saying earlier, scientists do terrible things. Scientists have biases. Religious people do terrible things, and they have biases. But absolutely intrinsic to the whole the methodology of science is that error-correcting mechanism, which says we must never lose sight of that. That's not in religion. That's not present at all. Talk about humble. It's the fact that we do science and that we can bring ourselves to see that little tiny earth in Carolyn's presentation. That is humility. What science has done for us spiritually is that it has been the only thing that I know of that has compelled us to wean ourselves of our infantile need for centrality. And that was present, that is very much the essence of so many religious formulations of where we come from, why we came to be. It's the sign of mental health, that we can bear to think that this planet was perfectly fine for 4.5 billion years without us. That cosmic evolution goes on for 13.5 billion years before we even get here. How long have we been in science? How long have we systematically been looking at nature? Not even 400 years. And yet science gets us out to Enceladus. It takes us out of the solar system. It enables us to wean ourselves of that spiritual narcissism which compelled us to be at the center of everything. So when it comes to humility, when it comes to a tolerance for ambiguity and for the unknown, I think science worships the unknown. I think scientists are most comfortable in that place of not knowing. And that's where they live. And that's the great strength of science. So I would respectfully disagree.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
All right, next we have Samantha McGuire, a friend of mine for many years, and she now works at American Atheists. Sam, how are you today?
I'm good, Phil. How are you?
I'm great. I didn't even look. What's your official title?
National Field Director.
National Field Director. And what does that mean in English?
Right? What does that mean? So basically my job is to work with our volunteers and affiliate groups all across the country to help them do lots of local activism, community service, community building where they live across the nation, and then also to do the sort of national programs like our convention, our webinar series we've been doing during COVID, those sorts of things.
And if an affiliate or a non-affiliate, a group that meets, and whether it's in person, probably not, or online, how do they become an affiliate? Do they contact you?
Yeah, they can contact me at my email, which is smcguire@atheist.org. That's SMCGUIRE @atheist.org. Or you can go to our website, and there is a map of the affiliates that are there. So you can find a local affiliate, and if there isn't one, there's a contact form on there that also comes to me. And the bar for becoming an affiliate is pretty low. You have to just have a group. Most groups have a website presence or a Facebook presence or a meetup presence.
Right.
And then, of course, we have groups that are fully incorporated, nonprofits that are out there doing a lot of organized work as well.
Very, very good. And there's at least 5 groups already in there? How many are there?
We are at 230-plus affiliates across the country now.
Okay, so odds are there's something close to you. Well, it may not even matter that it's close to you because you're not fucking going.
Exactly.
Listeners, but you could make contact and see if they're doing online, and then when things clear in 2026, you can go meet in person again.
Yeah, 2026. So a lot of our groups have pivoted to doing online events, and actually they're seeing a big increase in attendance at them because people, California is an awfully large state, and Atheists United, who's one of our big groups out there, is doing really great programming. So all of the groups in California are tuning into that. So it's been interesting, and a lot of affiliate groups are saying they're going to keep that online component for at least some of their meetings so that they can get people who don't live in the city to come to their meetings and webinars.
That is fantastic, and I'm all for it, and I would love to do something like that myself, but I'm really lame because I have a very busy full-time job and this wonderful podcast, but if someone wants to do that in southwest Chicago suburbs, I'm all for it. Actually, anywhere in Chicago, I'm all for it. But anyway, so that's one of the fun things you do, and I know you don't know a whole lot about court cases. Anything pop into your head that you're aware of, or how can I go look for more information?
Yeah, so we have several legal cases going on all of the time. The big one that we are involved in right now is the Rayford case, the Jason Rayford case. And obviously Jeff would be the person to give you a lot more details about that. But he is working on that diligently, and we had some good news in it. And that's the case in Arkansas with a state-level legislator who blocked a bunch of social media followers who criticized him and made it clear that they were atheists, and so he blocked them on the basis of their viewpoint, which is, not great as a elected official.
Well, and it's because he was using that platform to communicate with the public, and so everyone should have access. Is that kind of where this is coming from?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So it's not his personal account; it's his official government account. And so his constituents and the general public should be able to interact with him if he's using it to interact with his constituents. And you shouldn't be able to block folks based on them disagreeing with you on particular issues.
Fair enough. But do you think he would be able to block them if they were trying to incite violence?
Oh, absolutely. And we tell people all the time, Jeff has done a bunch of webinars on this, that we want you to engage with your elected officials, and we want you to say that you're an atheist and that you have these beliefs of separation of religion and government or whatever it is that you're engaging on, but to not be abusive, right? Don't name call, be respectful. They are still elected officials, even if you disagree with them, and they should accord the same respect back to you.
Yeah, I just find it very interesting. People that I know that are very conservative, and you know, you have to be delicate because American Atheists is a 501c3, but they're very concerned that some politicians have been removed from media platforms when they do things that may be deemed illegal, but yet these very same people are okay with someone refusing to make a cake because of your life choices. I don't understand how they have that dichotomy in their head, and I don't know if you can even address that from a legal perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of memes floating out on Twitter about that, right? Just think of it as a cake and think of them as a bakery, and it's a private business, and so they can they have terms of service, and if the terms of service are broken, then they can ban whoever they want because they're a business. So, I mean, well, I'm not gonna comment on the specifics of the political figures that you're referring to, and whether I like them or not.
It was a purely hypothetical. I'm not. Yeah.
Purely hypothetical.
Yeah.
Hypothetically speaking, of course. Yeah. So it is interesting watching the sort of cognitive dissonance and what goes on in people's heads as they try to logic through this particular deplatforming, right?
Yeah.
Or this particular business making decisions about who their customers can be, because we're all customers of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and whoever else.
And even though it might apply to politics, what I'm going to do is transition to religion. Might be a little safer for you to comment, but I often find in religion, sometimes the really, really, really intelligent people are the most troublesome because you think that they would see what they're doing, but often they have the best skill set to come up with justifications for what they already believe, even though a third-party observer would think that what they're saying is comically, ludicrously stupid, but they've convinced themselves because they have these skills. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, so my thing is that I actually really don't debate people about their religious beliefs because I don't care what they believe.
Oh, you're missing out.
They literally... Well, I know. I've been told this before, but I really don't care what folks believe. I really don't. And people have their held beliefs, and that's fine with me. What I care about is when you take your beliefs and try to dictate how I live my life based on your beliefs.
Yeah.
Right? So if I told you, Phil, I believe that I have a purple unicorn and it lives in my shoes, and I have to wear closed-toed shoes because otherwise my purple unicorn will be in danger, right? And you're like, okay, crazy Sam, whatever. But if I were to tell you, Phil, you can no longer wear your Birkenstocks with your socks because your purple unicorn will be in danger, then I'm trying to push my belief on you. Right? And so that's
funny.
Where I have the trouble.
You and mentioning Birkenstocks, that cracking me up. I don't think I've...
Are you saying you don't wear Birkenstocks and socks?
Almost exclusively. Well, not in the summer, but it's funny because I have always, ever since I was a kid and had even the most nascent awareness of social norms in regards to clothing, I loathe when people comment and tell me what I should and should not wear. I kind of think that it's none of your fucking business. And if I want to wear white pants in winter, I can do that. If I want to wear Birkenstocks, I've had people at a conference come up to me and it's like, you're wearing socks with your Birkenstocks. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, why would you do that? And I go, because it's cold. And they're like, yeah, so that gets to my point. Why have sandals on? Just last week, I bought some Birken boots, I call them.
Really?
Birkenstock.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
But they came out with a new actual boot, something I could wear in a mosh pit.
Nice, so like lace up, combat boot looking boots.
They're lace ups, and they have the eye loops instead of eye holes. Is that what they call those? Mm-hmm. And they go up past my ankle because me being an old dumb fuck, a couple of months ago, I guess I strained my ankle, and I'm supposed to have support. And for a couple of weeks, I wore what I called a Biden boot. It was almost impossible to walk around, so I bought these.
Like a walking boot?
Yeah, it's a medical walking boot that forms to your, and it had a little pump thing like Air Jordans, or you could squeeze it.
I was in one of those for like 6 months, my friend. Not fun.
I did it for 2 weeks, and went back to the doctor and told him it sucked. And he's like, well, stop wearing it. The other thing he told me was that you're only supposed to wear it when you're walking.
I tore my Achilles. It was a full tear.
Oh.
So they said, you will wear that.
Yeah.
And you will be on crutches before that for a full 12 weeks. So that was fun.
Anyway.
Well, back in my youth, I used to wear Doc Martens. And they didn't have greatest arch support, but they had that same sort of ankle support that you're describing with those eye loops instead of eye.
Yeah.
There you go.
Now
I miss snow.
Yeah. Oh, well, you can fucking have some. I think I've decided it's not the snow.
That's what my dad says too. I grew up in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and my dad's still in Massachusetts. And I'm always like, oh, I miss snow, and he's like, you can have it.
Yeah, it's not the snow that bothers me, and I think I've decided it's not even the cold because I can bundle up. It's the gloomy days where there's just no sun, sometimes for a week at a time.
See, that's why I don't like it here, because I'm in southern Maryland, about an hour and a half south of D.C.
Yeah,
and because we're between the Chesapeake Bay and the Potomac River, we have the water keeping the air kind of warm, so we don't get snow even when parts of the state do.
Right.
But it'll be gray for a week and a half, and because there's just gray and brown and dead grass and dead trees, it's just so depressing. Where snow, at least there's light reflecting off the white for when the snow is there, and it brightens up the entire environment. At least that's my recollection of liking snow.
At start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
But I hated snow when I was a student at UMass, because UMass has these tall skyscraper concrete buildings that create wind tunnels.
Oh.
And when I had to go somewhere and it was cold and snowy, I didn't like that. But once I was like, and a person who could just be like, oh, I'm not going to work today. It's snowing out.
Yeah, I mean,
then that became a much better experience for me.
I think I would enjoy it much more on a bright sunny day in a ski lodge where someone from staff is bringing me a hot cocoa with maybe
a
little Bailey's in it. Yeah, and a fire, a little Bailey's in it or
Bloody
something.
Mary.
Ugh, I can't stand those. No, I'll stick to the hot cocoa. Conference, American Atheists last year.
Speaking of hanging out and having a few drinks.
Yeah, exactly. Last year, 2020, the conference was officially semantically delayed 1 year, whatever.
Postponed.
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct. And it's now 2021, and it was going to be Easter-ish, which is really early this year.
Yeah.
And
the 2nd through the 4th it was supposed to be.
Of March or April? It had to be April. Yeah, it had to be April because it's after, let's see, it's the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the first full day of spring, which is after the
I only
spring.
remember it because my birthday is the 3rd, and so we were supposed to be having a party on my birthday, and we're not now. So.
Nice. Well, happy birthday in advance, because I probably will forget after we get off the phone.
That's okay.
So there's no in-person conference, but there's all kinds of plans and ideas of what to do instead. So tell me what you guys are up to.
Yeah, so we just sent out the announcement yesterday, but of course we've been considering what we were going to do about this pretty much since we postponed it last year. We've been thinking about, okay, or is this going to be safe or not? And we were hoping that it would be. We were really, looking forward to seeing everybody in Arizona in 2021, but it just clearly is not meant to be. So we're transitioning everything onto online, and we are going to be holding the main programming during that first weekend in April, so the 2nd to the 4th. And we're just sent out a survey yesterday, which I'll make sure that I send you the link so if people want to contribute ideas. I know that last time I looked at it, we already had 250 responses for folks saying things that they would like to see at a conference or things they liked from past conferences. So we definitely want to hear from everybody, things that they have ideas of, particularly if you've attended conferences in the last year in 2020 and you were really excited about something that another group did. We're definitely taking ideas. But one of the things that I'm really trying to do is, we did pivot into some online programming over the summer with our speaker series, and they've continued that with a monthly speaker series on Zoom webinars. But I really feel like a lot of people are zoomed out at this point, and we want to do something that's a little bit more engaging. So we've been testing a bunch of platforms, but our idea is to find a platform that people can mingle in the same way that they do when they come to our conventions. So I was saying before we started recording, right, if you want to jump in onto a table and people are talking about how much they love dark beer or how much cats are better than dogs or dogs are better than cats, like that's what happens at our conferences. And I know people are missing that. So we're really looking to have a convention where folks can have that sort of mingling atmosphere, even though it's online. And it won't be exactly the same because we haven't figured out how to get the bartender to pass the beer through the screen. But
BYOB.
We are trying to make it a little bit more interactive in that way than just sitting on Zoom for a whole weekend.
Absolutely. And as we're talking, I just had an idea pop up in my head because of commercials, by the way. How about some kind of watch party?
Yeah. So one of the ideas that a lot of people have bandied about is doing like an atheist movie night and having a watch party where everybody's watching the same thing and being able to chat and talk about it. So that's definitely one of the ideas that's on the table, and trying to figure out the technology to make those things happen.
That's probably more noble than what my thought. I was just thinking of SpongeBob. Just pick a random episode and have 500 atheists watch an episode of SpongeBob.
Yeah, and we've had a bunch of ideas, and the reason we want to hear from people is, American Atheist staff, we all are different people and we do different things, but, people are like, what about playing and having a Twitch stream? And I'm like, I don't even know what those words mean, but it sounds like fun. I'm excited if you're excited. But,
yeah.
So having ideas of things that we wouldn't think of, is definitely good.
Well, yeah, because then you could do like a battle royale, and you get six atheists to sign up to play a particular game and have tiers and a league or something. Then they could all go play it. I don't know, just something like you said, something different, something fun, and everyone can be there that likes that kind of thing and comment and open chat and just have some fun and have some sense of community. And I think an environment, even if you're someone who just wants to be there and not talk, knowing that you could say what you wanted to and not be shunned for thinking that religion is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah, and I mean, absolutely. And these online platforms, like I said before, for our affiliate groups is going to afford us an opportunity we don't actually have during the national convention, right?
Yeah.
The national convention moves around, and it's in Arizona, it's in South Carolina, it's in Oklahoma. And so there's a certain number of people who can't travel to those places, but everybody should be able to log in and get online and be able to connect with people. So one of the things we're definitely talking about is figuring out, and we were talking about this in person for our in-person events as well, is being able to connect people. Oh, wow, you're from Illinois? These other people are also from Illinois. Maybe you guys should get to know each other, right? And so we're trying to figure out how to facilitate that. We were talking about printing state outlines on name badges when we're going to do this in person.
Yeah.
So doing something similar online, having a room that people can convene in and chit-chat and talk about what's going on in Illinois or the Midwest or whatever the region is.
And I don't remember if you guys were particularly good or bad at it in the past, but one of the things I can't stand is name tags with 12-point font on them. Because my eyes aren't as good as they used to be.
I think ours are pretty big.
Yeah.
Ours just have, because we actually print pretty nice name badges, and then we put everybody's name on them. So we were going to just do like a state outline with the name behind it or something like that. But
nice.
Now we can't do that.
Yeah.
2022.
That's right.
Gosh, I can't even figure out what year it is.
Well, in 2022, that convention will hopefully be where?
Atlanta,
and then Phoenix gets another try in 23.
Correct, because of hotel contracts and things like that. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
So we already had a contract for Atlanta in 2022, but we wanted to make sure we didn't skip Phoenix entirely. So 2022, we're in Atlanta. 2023, back in Phoenix.
Yeah, Atlanta is quite a long drive, but I think I could pull that off, although who knows, it's a year from now. I might end up flying. But where can people learn more about what's going on, what is planned, what may be planned, and put in their suggestions?
So I will make sure that the survey link, I will send it to you because I know that you post some show notes.
sometimes
I
it
think that the
happens.
convention website
Yeah.
has the survey up on there too.
Okay, well, let me check that right
And
now.
if not, it will.
So that's going to be atheists.org. Is that right?
Yes.
So you? Oh, look at this, American Atheist. Oh, that's pretty. I haven't been there for a while. Let's see.
So it's convention.atheist.org is where updates and announcements will be, and we will be updating that as we have more information. As I said, the email went out to folks talking about folks who were signed up for the 2020 convention. And so going online, and there's a survey, and you can fill it out and give us some ideas. Also of great speakers you would love to see or talk to online. We have a lot of really great suggestions. We will be bringing back some of the speakers that we were supposed to have in 2020, so some of those folks will roll into our 2021 lineup. And then we'll be bringing some other new names that have not been announced yet.
Nice. What names are known and confirmed? Anything you can share?
I'm not sure that I can right now.
Okay.
I think that Debbie Goddard is our vice president of programs, and she's busily confirming that the folks that were supposed to be in person can do it online. Of course, I'm assuming most of them can. If they were willing to travel to Phoenix, then they can log into a computer. But.
Very, very good. Well, we can always give an update. I'm looking at atheist.org/activism/conventions, and there's a very nice link for updated information on the 2020 convention. So you might want someone to jump on that. But if you click...
So try convention.atheist.org.
Well, I clicked on that link that had the wrong year, and it does take me to convention.atheist.org. So it works. It's just not labeled correctly. Okay.
So you're just ahead of the game since we just rolled this out yesterday.
Yeah. All kinds. Sign up for events, questions, ask us. Nice. Okay. Good. So I'm looking forward to it because I didn't really realize how much I missed humans. Because sometimes they're just a big pain in the ass. I guess it's the right humans.
Yeah, no, for sure. We have our state director has a Facebook group, and we're always lamenting that we all miss each other and that we are so sad we're not going to see each other again in 2021, at least in the spring, maybe in the fall. By fall, maybe folks can have in-person events again. Maybe there'll be enough folks vaccinated.
Yeah.
But definitely not by April.
Yeah, I just read a story that people that have already been ill are probably protected for 5 months, maybe more. And I'm like, 5 months? That's not cool, man. Because what that means, and maybe we can do it eventually, is that instead of getting a flu shot every year, you're going to get a flu/COVID shot every year. We can give flu shots.
I don't know what that will mean long term with the vaccine, because the double dose one is supposed to give additional protection. But that's a conversation for somebody who has a bigger medical background than me, for sure.
Well, I am very excited. I just saw to this morning that Johnson & Johnson, they're still working on the testing, so it's not formalized and released yet. But optimistic preliminary data suggests that they have a refrigerator-stable vaccination that requires one shot.
Right.
And so that kind of doubles your ability to produce, because you only need one shot. It simplifies it, and you don't have to take medical people's time twice to go get it. So hopefully late summer, fall, we can have something in person, even if we're still wearing masks for protection, but we can at least be together for a while.
Yeah. And even in our local groups, like I said, most of them have suspended all of their meetings or have moved online. There's a few groups that are doing really great community service work, and they're being very careful about how they do that. But that's really the only sort of in-person activity that we have going on across all of our groups that I know of. Occasionally, when there was a little bit of a dip in the wave, there were some people who were outside doing hikes and road cleanups and things like
Nice.
that. But yeah, it's been a long year of not seeing folks.
Excellent. Well, anything that we haven't covered that you want to cover before we wrap up? Because I know you have a whole day of work still to do.
I do. Actually, I have a meeting to talk about the convention right after this.
Nice.
So should be making some decisions on platforms, and that will help us structure what we're doing. So, and so again, go to convention.atheist.org, and there's the survey link on there. So if your listeners have opinions about what we should be doing or suggestions for things that you've seen that were really cool, we are definitely actively wanting suggestions. And again, if you would like to become an affiliate, if you go to atheist.org and click on that activism link, there's a local group and affiliate page, and then you can see if there's an affiliate near you, and if not, you can fill out the form. It will come to me, and I'll get in touch, and we can talk about how to set up a group in your area, which is in some ways harder and some ways easier with this new online way of things, right? Because you just set up a Facebook and a Zoom account, and off you go.
Very good. Well, Samantha McGuire, thank you so much for taking time out of your day at American Atheists, or atheist.org, and of course, convention.atheist.org. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us.
I am happy to be here always, Phil.
Thank you again for listening to the show. I'm delighted that you could make it and join us. And I, of course, would love if you can do one of a couple of things for me. Tell a friend so they can listen to the show, maybe learn something. Go give a 5-star review at Apple Podcast Player, or Stitcher. Just by FYI, I mentioned I might be leaving Spreaker. Well, they've apparently turned on my ability to have ads again, which I don't make a lot of money on it. It was a principal kind of thing, so I don't think I'm moving at this point in time. But anyway, or go to Patreon. Patreon, you can avoid any commercials if the show has commercials. Patreon.com/Phil for as little as $1 per show, not per week, because as regular listeners know, sometimes I don't make a week. Matter of fact, most times lately I've been like 2 a month, but we'll see what happens in 2021. The other fun thing I wanted to revisit, one of the things I mentioned at the end of the last show, where I have been slowly, over the last several years, scooping cream off the top of large cap growth and growth funds in general, and moving more money to small cap and value, and maybe increasing international. And in the short run, if large cap growth particularly continues to dominate the market, you can end up with underperformance, or at least lagging the market, or not keeping up with the best funds that have all the big names that you come to know and love. And that sometimes things change. And just for fun, I had some more data, and I'm cherry picking a very small parcels of time, small periods of time, just to make a point. It's not something I normally do, but I just thought it was curious. As of today, if you look back 3 months, the Vanguard Large Cap Growth Fund over 3 months is up 5%, which is nice for 3 months. That's great. Most years it's 10% for a year, 5%. The Small Cap Value Fund, VSIAX, is up 26.6% in 3 months. Because what I had talked about was, if you wait to see that the market has changed, by the time that you see that it's changed, it might be too late. And also, if I cherry pick 6 months, I'm doing this on Yahoo Finance, and today is the 14th of January. The large cap growth is up 21.6%, still a phenomenal number in 6 months. And the small cap value is up 44%. So you made an extra 23% in just 6 months. Now, maybe that's partly because value got hit harder in March, which is kind of the point. You see what I'm trying to make is that when a certain segment of or an investment class underperforms, that might be an opportunity to put a small increase into that position, because it can come back. This doesn't work for individual stocks. You can't go buy a stock just because it's down with the expectation of going up. But it does work with large market segments like the Vanguard large cap growth versus the Vanguard small cap value, which is the two that I'm talking about for this point. So the more extreme the variation becomes, I think the more likely there is going to be some adjustment in the future. So I've been reducing the winners and adding to the losers. And you can have a period of time like 2019, 2018, where it looks like you're falling behind. And then all of a sudden, in 6 months, you make 40% on part of the market that wasn't looking very exciting. That's absolutely staggering. And will it reverse and go back to where it was 6 months from now? Maybe. You don't know. That's why you want to have all these things. Anyway, show longer than I expect, but that's almost always the case. Thank you very much for listening. You can go to patreon.com/Phil and contribute there. You can leave a 5-star review, or you can share the show with a friend. Any one of those things I would greatly appreciate, and I thank you for listening. And it doesn't look like the American Atheist Conference, but maybe something in late summer or the fall of 2021, we can actually be together and see each other. And if you are there and I am there, please feel free to say hello. Until then, ciao.
I'm all about that grace, Holy Spirit. I'm all about that grace, Oh yeah, it's pretty clear. God should have loved you. Now we can worship like we're supposed to do. Cause I got that free gift that I can embrace. Not from my good works, but all from my faith, yeah. I read the Bible, y'all. It says that grace is free. You know this gift is real. It's love and mercy. God sure does love you, so praise him, y'all, cause he died and rose again so you can worship him non-stop. Yeah, the Bible, it told me, don't worry about your life. It says Christians, we like to walk by faith and not by sight. God knows that we are not perfect and he shows grace to us all. Because you know I'm all about that grace, can't earn it. I'm all about that grace, God made it. I'm all about that grace, Holy Spirit. I'm all about that grace, Hey, Jesus is coming back. Go ahead and tell all the disciples that he stands and knocks. Use your heart out. But I'm here to tell you, cause he died and rose again so you can worship him and stop. Yeah, the Bible, it told me, don't worry about your life. It says Christians, we like to walk by faith and not by sight. God knows that we are not perfect and he shows grace to us all. So I think that deserves praise, so join us and sing along. Because you know I'm all about that grace, can't earn it. I'm all about that grace, God made it. I'm all about that grace, Holy Spirit. I'm all about that grace, because you know I'm all about that grace, can't earn it. I'm all about that grace, God made it. I'm all about that grace, Holy Spirit. I'm all about that grace, because you know I'm all about that grace, can't earn it. I'm all about that grace, God made it. I'm all about that grace, Holy Spirit. I'm all about that grace,
Yeah, that's right. We're all about that grace. Continental Breakfast coming at you. 2015, baby.